All right, welcome back. It's the ultimate Cleveland sports show, and it's time. This segment is called What If? Mike, start us off here.
Yeah, so this is something Earl came up with, and we decided we were going to wait to debut it till the day he was on the panel. If it works, we're going to do this for a bunch of different ideas in the sports world. We can go non-sports, but the question is, what if? And for today's scenario, the question is, what if the Browns had drafted Josh Allen instead of Baker Mayfield with the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft? Earl, what if that had happened?
So, man, bro, I'm glad we started with this one. Boy, G, this one got me because, in my opinion, you all remember when John Dorsey first got hired, right?
Yeah.
First thing he did was cut Dwayne Bowe. Good move, right?
Right.
Got Dwayne. Excellent move. Got Dwayne Bowe out of here. He was stealing money. But we had all heard the rumors that entire season he was away from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
He was studying, and he was fixated on Baker Mayfield. And it was almost like at the time that he became the Browns general manager, it was a foregone conclusion. This is who the Browns were going to draft. And I know, like, I'm currently car shopping, right? I get fixated on certain make and models of cars. I'm a Chevy guy. And sometimes when you're so fixated on what you think you want is the best option, you can miss out on something else that might be much, much better for you. And it's just like, man, what if John Dorsey wasn't so fixated on Baker Mayfield and he drafted Josh Allen?
Are you convinced the Browns would have been able to develop him as the Bills did?
No, but I'm convinced that different person, different skill set, that maybe it would have been a longer leash. Maybe some people's thought process would have been different over those years as far as, let's make this move instead of this move, or I see this a little differently with this guy. But, I mean, I think about that with him. Like, you know, what if they didn't look at Lamar Jackson as a guy that should have been playing wide receiver, and he was actually drafted higher than that?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just one of those what if, bull.
Yeah.
What if?
I mean, obviously there's so many things from that point on. You never know. Like,
you probably don't make the trade for Deshaun Watson.
You don't trade. No. I know a lot of people would argue that the Browns wouldn't have developed him. Obviously, Hugh Jackson would have been his coach the first year. Would they have been, would they have ultimately fired Hugh Jackson? Who can say? You never know what would have happened. But I'll say there's a better than 50% chance that if you would have drafted Josh Allen, he'd be your franchise quarterback and the Browns would be in a totally different position than they would be. I leave open the possibility that the Browns would have effed him up, but I'll say that he is talented enough that that they would have maybe he wouldn't be quite as good as he is. We'll never know. But I think the Browns obviously would not have traded for Deshaun Watson, and the organization would be in a completely different place now had they drafted Josh Allen over Baker Mayfield.
I think when you look at it, the question that gives me pause, and you go back in time, what is it, The Man in the High Castle or The Man in the High Tower? The movie. Yeah. I think if you want to go back and say, okay, they took Josh Allen, number 1 overall, you people got to realize Baker Mayfield actually was ahead of Josh Allen in terms of what he was able to do, like in terms of his skill set at that point. Josh Allen, if you go back and think about it, was considered the least polished out of all of the quarterbacks, whether it was Josh Rosen, Darnold, Lamar Jackson, and Baker.
Yeah.
They were all more ready to play early. I don't know if the Browns would have gave him enough runway in order to play the same 3 years that he played. Josh Allen didn't start hitting until what year? McNuggets.
His third season, he went from, here's stats, rookie, second, third year. Yeah. So rookie year, he played 12 games.
Okay.
He started 11. He went 5-6, had 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but ran for 6 touchdowns.
Okay.
So 16 touchdowns.
All right.
Second year, started all 16 games, made progress. They went 10-6.
Okay.
20 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. He led 5 game-winning drives.
I mean, that's pretty good for a second year.
Yeah,
and then his third year is where he exploded, though.
That's when he became great in year 3.
13-3, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's when he became Josh Allen.
So, Freddie, I think this is crazy. It boils down to, what are your thoughts on Hugh Jackson? Because if he had those numbers and he ended up being 10-6, you have to ask you a question. If he's the starting quarterback, do the Browns still fire Hugh Jackson?
So Hugh got fired in Baker's first season or
first
second?
season?
His first year.
Yeah. So
I think Hugh Jackson would. I mean, I guess in my mind I took it to where Stefanski ended up the coach anyway, but maybe he wouldn't have. I don't know.
I think Hugh
that's
still
the
get
beauty.
fired.
It's the what if. We don't know.
Because if you got Josh Allen, and even if he, like, say for instance, he threw, what is it, 10 touchdowns? You said 10 and...
He had 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, ran for 8. So 18 touchdowns as a rookie.
So 18 touchdowns as a rookie.
Yeah.
That's enough for us to be like, oh, okay, we can rationalize that.
Right, but Baker also had a good rookie year.
He did.
He tied the rookie record for passing
Baker
touchdowns
had
as a
more
rookie.
touchdowns than that. So I think Hugh would have still gotten fired.
So, okay.
Baker as a rookie had 27 passing touchdowns.
That's crazy.
Which is hard to believe.
That's crazy.
When did Baker have year 2?
That's crazy.
He went backwards.
In 2019, he had 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions.
Yeah, that was bad.
So let's just extrapolate this out. Okay, Hugh gets fired.
Yeah.
I don't think Freddie Kitchens gets hired.
Mm-mm.
Do you think they would? Because they wouldn't have had because Freddie Kitchens got hired because of the hot stretch he had with Baker Mayfield.
Right.
What if John Dorsey didn't hire Freddie Kitchens?
I think John Dorsey would still. If they had hired another coach, I think there's a decent chance.
Was it McDermott in the running with Stefanski?
McDermott was in the running.
So there's a chance that McDermott and Allen.
But I agree with G. I don't think they would have hired Freddie because I don't think Josh Allen in that first year on this team would have played as well as Baker did.
Nope.
And so they wouldn't have had that hot stretch. Freddie would not have gotten the job. Now, maybe Greg Williams would have gotten the job.
That's a whole nother
Maybe.
Maybe.
Come get some.
I think they would have. I think whatever if they had hired a decent coach the next year, and I don't remember who else was in contention that year.
I just looked up. This was the coaching hires of the 2018 cycle.
No,
it was 2019.
Yeah,
okay.
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury, Arizona. Zach Taylor, Cincinnati. Freddie Kitchens, Vic Fangio, Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
Brian Flores, Adam Gase, and Bruce Arians.
I think they would have hired Cliff Kingsbury.
Here's the crazy part.
Because he's an offensive guy.
But no, here's the crazy part, right? Because Bruce Arians is on that list. Bruce Arians wanted the Cleveland Browns job. To me, when you look at the Todd Monken hire, it's almost like this came back around and Jimmy Haslam said, I'm not making the same mistake twice.
But Bruce Arians had experience already.
He had experience, but he wasn't because he had the 1 year as an interim when
when he got hired. No, Bruce Arians.
He was a rookie head coach, but you remember he was there with Pagano and Indy. Pagano got sick. He took over as the interim.
Right, yeah.
He became officially a first-time head coach at like 60, 61 years old.
No, he was the head coach for the Cardinals
before
for 4
that.
years.
Yeah.
Before that year?
Yeah.
So he was the interim coach in Indy in 2012. Then he got hired by Arizona.
So yeah, I got the years mixed up. But man, Bruce Arians or Cliff Kingsbury at that time?
I think I would have think that they would have. I like to think that they would have went under a hot shot. Cliff Kingsbury. You put him with a guy with a huge arm. The question is, okay, they hire whatever coach they have. Now, think about the roster. Now, when he accelerates, do you believe that they'll put them in a situation where you got Nick Chubb, right? You still got Denzel and Myles Garrett and those guys.
Well, you would have had Odell and
if you have Odell and Landry,
it would have been totally different.
It would have been, yeah.
I mean, obviously we'll never know for sure. That's why it's what if.
Yeah.
But it stinks.
And is Patrick Mahomes who Patrick Mahomes is if that happens?
Why wouldn't he be?
Well, if you look at that roster and Josh Allen did what he did with the Bills, and that roster, I don't think on paper is as good
2017 though.
I don't know. The Bills were a decent team, right? Didn't they go to the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor right before Josh Allen?
I feel like they did.
I'll look it up.
I feel like they did.
If you got Jarvis, Odell, prime Nick Chubb, one of the best
offensive line
with Josh Allen. I mean,
they did. Boy, you were right. They were second place, 9-7.
Yeah, the Bills had a really good defense at that
2017.
time.
Yeah, they had some good guys.
Yeah.
The question is this: do the Browns, would they have been to a Super Bowl with Josh Allen?
I don't know if that's
certainly
the question.
Possible. I mean, he hasn't gotten
because he hasn't been there yet. I don't know if that's the question.
They would have been in the mix.
They would have.
The Bill. You trade places with where the Bills have been for the last 7 years.
Well, could you argue that the Browns were in the mix?
No.
So the year when the Browns were at their peak of what the Browns were, right?
They were never a legit Super Bowl contender. The Bills have been every year with Josh Allen. He's been good.
It's kind of messed up. Because
Save that because we got to take a break. We'll do some final thoughts on this. Let's blow off the next topic. We don't have enough time. Some final thoughts on this subject next on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.